Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're really plunging into a question that seems to be on, well, so many organizations' minds right now. How do you actually genuinely accelerate your automation programs, specifically by empowering more citizen developers and cultivating those real automation champions inside your teams?
Yeah, it's a huge topic.
We've pulled together insights from, a few different places, Microsoft Learn, obviously, a really key Forrester economic impact study, and even some practical discussions kicking around on Reddit.
Right, trying to get the full picture.
Exactly. All to sort of unearth the strategic why and, crucially, the actionable how behind this whole movement.
And I think our goal, for this deep dive is really to boil down the most impactful bits from all that.
Okay.
We really want to show you how empowering your own internal teams isn't just some small IT thing.
No, it feels bigger.
It's a fundamental shift. It can, revolutionize efficiency, spark innovation, and really unlock significant value across the whole business.
Yeah.
Moving from, say, a bottleneck to a real engine for growth.
That's a powerful way to put it, an engine for growth. And we are seeing this massive evolution in how apps get built, how processes get automated. It feels like a democratization of development, really.
It absolutely is.
But just to be clear for everyone listening, what exactly is a citizen developer or an automation champion in this, fast-changing landscape, and why are they suddenly so vital?
Yeah, good question. So at their core, citizen developers, these champions, they're business users.
Right, not hardcore coders necessarily.
Exactly. They're not your traditional professionally trained software engineers. They're folks in finance and HR and operations, people who are right there facing the business needs day to day.
Okay.
And they're building custom apps, they're automating those tedious workflows, creating insightful dashboards, even designing, functional websites for the business.
All using these newer tools.
Right. Using intuitive low-code or sometimes no-code tools, often within environments they already know, like Microsoft 365.
Okay.
And, consider this Gartner's prediction. They're saying by 2029, a huge 80% of all application development projects globally will rely on low-code.
80%. Wow.
Yeah, 80. That's up from just 15% back in 2024.
Yeah.
So this isn't just some niche trend anymore.
No, that's mainstream.
It's a massive shift.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting, and our sources definitely highlight this, is seeing how their approach has matured. It's not just about building one little Power App over here or a single Power BI report there.
They're more integrated now.
Much more.
Yeah.
These individuals are now strategically weaving together components from across the entire Microsoft Power Platform. So think Power Automate for the workflows, Power Apps for custom interfaces, Power BI for visualization, Power Pages for websites, and now Copilot Studio as well.
Right. Copilot Studio is pretty new for a lot of people. What role does that play in this citizen developer ecosystem?
Copilot Studio is, it's really about bringing AI into the mix more easily. It lets users build intelligent AI assistants or customize the main Microsoft 365 Copilot.
Okay.
So it brings that advanced conversational AI right into their business processes. It shows how these citizen developers are moving beyond just simple automation.
Towards more intelligent solutions.
Exactly. More sophisticated stuff. It lets the person closest to the problem build pretty powerful AI tools without needing, a PhD in data science.
That's democratizing AI development too, in a way.
In a sense, yes.
So with all that context, let's talk hard numbers. The bottom line, you mentioned that Forrester consulting study. It sounds like it has some pretty compelling figures. What's the tangible impact here?
Oh, the numbers are definitely compelling. They paint a very clear picture of the value. One of the most striking things, big reductions in application development costs.
Okay, how big?
Well, projects built by citizen developers just cost significantly less. Forrester found that for a medium project, say, benefiting around 50 users, the cost was basically cut in half. Dropped from maybe $75,000 down to $37,500.
50% savings. Wow.
Yeah. And for larger projects, maybe impacting 300 users, the savings were even more dramatic. Costs plummeted from $250,000 down to just $90,000.
That's huge, like 70% savings.
Exactly. Overall, it averages out to about a 48% reduction in applicable development costs. And think about what that means. It's not just saving cash.
No, it means more projects get done.
Right. It shifts IT from being purely a cost center to an enabler. Teams can build solutions faster, cheaper, things that maybe wouldn't have even gotten approved before.
Yeah, that totally changes the dynamic. So, okay, development costs are down. What about just, day-to-day work efficiency?
Absolutely. The impact there is substantial too. Streamlined processes, better operational efficiency. The solutions built with Power Platform led to a 3% bump in user efficiency in the first year,
Okay, 3%.
which grew to 5% by year 3. Now, that might sound small, 3 to 5%.
But it adds up across an organization.
Massively. It adds up to $10.2 million in risk-adjusted time savings over 3 years, according to Forrester. And we saw actual examples in the study,
Like what?
like an RPA solution saving VPs 4 or 5 hours every week,
Wow.
production planners cutting the time to create schedules by 75%, a 10% drop in labor hours needed for customer projects. Imagine giving hundreds or thousands of employees hours back each week.
That's genuinely transformational, redirecting focus to, well, higher value work.
Yeah.
Go efficiencies up. Does this actually translate to the top line? More revenue?
It does, absolutely.
Yeah.
Organizations reported better business outcomes and, yes, increased revenue. By the third year, they saw about a 1% revenue increase.
Okay.
And operating margin climbed, too, from 12% to 12.5%. Again, small percentages maybe, but it translated into an extra $15.8 million in risk-adjusted operating revenue over those 3 years.
So when you add it all up,
When you pull it all together, the cost savings, the efficiency gains, the revenue boosts, the overall financial picture is, frankly, remarkable.
what's the headline ROI?
A 502% return on investment,
500%.
502, with a $25.92 million net present value, and, maybe most impressively, an 11-month payback period.
Less than a year to get your investment back.
Exactly. It makes the business case pretty strong.
Yeah, no kidding. Those are impressive hard numbers. They definitely make the case. But beyond the dollars and cents, what about those, aha moments? The things that are harder to quantify but still deliver huge strategic value. What are those qualitative shifts?
Right, and that's often where the real paradigm shift happens. One huge unquantified benefit: better, faster decision-making.
How so?
Take Power BI, for instance. It fundamentally democratizes data access. More people across different departments can get their hands on timely information and analyze it themselves.
So they're not waiting for reports from IT all the time.
Exactly. It fosters a more data-driven culture, naturally. Insights become more proactive, less reactive. Another key benefit is just getting more value out of the Microsoft tools you already have.
Okay.
The Power Platform extends and integrates really smoothly with Microsoft 365, with Dynamics 365. So if your organization relies heavily on, say, Microsoft Teams for collaboration,
Which many do.
right, Power Platform just amplifies that investment, makes the tools you own even more useful.
That makes sense. And what about security? That's always a big concern, right? Especially when you're talking about more people building things. Does this introduce risk?
It's a critical point, and maybe counterintuitively, Power Platform can actually improve security and compliance
How does that work?
by providing official, sanctioned low-code tools. This helps organizations really cut down on shadow IT.
Ah, the unofficial spreadsheets and access databases.
Exactly. Those solutions that pop up everywhere because central IT can't keep up with every single business need. They're often built with good intentions, but they live outside controlled systems.
That's right.
Potentially insecure.
Potentially. So bringing these kinds of projects into a managed, secure environment like Power Platform actually leads to tighter data security
What?
and better compliance, because everything integrates with Microsoft's security stack. It moves that informal stuff into a controlled, auditable framework.
Okay, so you get visibility and control you didn't have before.
Precisely.
So connecting this all together, the benefits seem, well, transformational, huge ROI, better decisions, even better security. But then the big question is, how? How do organizations actually do this? What tools, what strategies do they need to empower these citizen developers effectively?
Yeah, that's the crucial next step. It really starts with understanding the core toolkit itself, the Power Platform components that our sources cover.
Right.
We're talking Power Apps for building those custom applications, Power Automate for handling the workflow automation side, Power BI for dynamic data visualization, dashboards, reporting, Power Pages, which lets you build external-facing business websites.
And as we mentioned, Copilot Studio for building and customizing those AI assistants. These are just separate tools. They work together. It's a whole ecosystem.
An ecosystem for business users to innovate in.
Exactly.
Okay, so they have the tools, but one of the first practical things people seem to run into based on, say, those Reddit discussions you mentioned,
Yeah.
is where to put the data. There's this constant SharePoint versus Dataverse debate.
Yes, the classic debate. You definitely hit on a very common point, and yeah, it pops up a lot online. SharePoint Online has some clear advantages.
Like what?
Well, many users already know it, right? It's familiar territory. Managing data in SharePoint lists is pretty straightforward, and it integrates really well with the rest of Microsoft 365.
And the cost factor.
That's often the big one, especially highlighted on Reddit. For many organizations, using SharePoint doesn't add extra costs beyond their existing Microsoft 365 licenses. So it's great for, simpler apps, quick interactions, where that familiarity and cost advantage are key.
Okay, so SharePoint for simpler, maybe cost-sensitive projects. What about Dataverse?
Dataverse is generally seen as the more robust, scalable, enterprise-grade option. It's built on Azure SQL, so it's a much more powerful, structured data backend, really designed for complex solutions.
But there's a catch.
The trade-off, usually, is cost. Dataverse often requires premium connectors, which means additional licensing fees. And that's where the tension comes in, like you see on Reddit. People weigh the best technical platform against what's actually feasible financially for that specific project or team.
So it depends.
It really depends on the complexity, the data volume, the kind of data, the budget, and frankly, the long-term scalability plans for that solution. There's no single right answer.
Right, that choice directly impacts who can build what based on licensing. Okay, so let's say you've got citizen developers starting to build. How do you make sure the solutions they create are, well, good, maintainable, secure, performant over time? What best practices should those automation champions be pushing?
That's absolutely crucial. You need standards and guidelines, even in low code. Our sources give some excellent pointers, particularly for Power Apps and Canvas apps, but the core ideas apply much more broadly.
Okay, what are some key principles?
First off, consistency. Sounds basic, but it's paramount. Consistent naming conventions for everything screens, controls.
Like using prefixes.
Exactly. Clear screen names like home screen or user details screen. Using standard prefixes for controls, like LBLA for labels, TXT for text inputs. Consistent ways to name variables, maybe lock for local ones used on a single screen, GBL for global ones used everywhere, and col for collections.
Ooh, why is that so important?
It's not just about tidiness. It makes the app way easier to read, understand, support, and troubleshoot later. If someone else has to pick it up, or even if you come back to it months later, consistency speeds everything up dramatically.
Okay, consistency. What else?
Organization. Grouping related controls together on a screen helps manage visual complexity, using built-in features like format text in Power Apps for formulas.
Oh yeah, that adds line breaks and stuff.
Exactly. Makes complex logic readable. And importantly, it doesn't add bloat. The formatting is stripped when you publish. Another key organizational principle is minimizing the number of controls. Reusing one control with dynamic properties is usually better than stacking lots of similar ones.
Yeah, less clutter.
Less clutter, better performance. And also understanding where to put your code logic. Use OnStart for things that only need to run once when the app loads. Use OnVisible for screen-specific setup. Use OnSelect for button clicks and user interactions. Structure makes apps predictable and easier to debug.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And performance, especially for apps that might get bigger or use more data. What should citizen developers know?
Performance optimization is critical. Users won't adopt a slow app. One key concept is parallelism. Using functions like concurrent in Power Apps lets you make multiple data calls at the same time, instead of one after another. That can drastically speed up loading times.
Okay, run things in parallel.
Another vital concept is delegation. This is about understanding which operations can be pushed to the data source, like SharePoint or Dataverse, to process on the server side.
Why does that matter?
Server-side processing is way faster and more efficient for large data sets. Non-delegable operations pull all the data down to the app first, then filter or sort it. That can be incredibly slow with lots of data.
Ah, so you want the heavy lifting done on the server if possible.
Precisely. For smaller data sets that you access often, maybe loading them into a local collection in the app once can be faster than repeatedly querying the source. The big takeaway is to identify and avoid those expensive calls that really bog down the user experience.
Okay. And what about when things go wrong? Error handling, debugging.
Also crucial for robust apps. You can build in simple things like using toggle controls to show or hide error messages, or even create hidden debug panels on a screen, maybe just some text labels showing variable values.
Hidden from regular users.
Yeah, you can make them visible only to app makers or specific admins by checking their Azure AD group membership, for example. Lets you troubleshoot effectively without confusing end users. And finally, documentation.
Ugh, documentation.
I know, but it's vital, even here.
Oh,
Use
absolutely.
comments liberally in your formulas line comments or block comments. The good news is they get removed when you publish the app, so they don't impact size or speed.
Okay, that's good to know.
And consider creating actual documentation screens inside the app itself, maybe only visible in edit mode, that explain what key variables or collections are for, or how a complex piece of logic works. It makes maintenance so much easier down the line.
Right. Helps the next person or even future you.
Exactly. These practices help ensure the solutions are solid, even when built by non-professional developers.
This all sounds like a great framework for empowering people, but it definitely needs that solid foundation you mentioned. How does central IT fit in? How do they enable all this democratization, while still keeping things secure and under control? It sounds like a tricky balancing act.
It is a delicate balance, absolutely. And that's exactly where strong governance and good support mechanisms from IT become indispensable. The IS's role really shifts here.
From gatekeepers to enabler.
Precisely. They move from being the only builders to being the enablers and the guardians. This means providing support to the citizen developers, things like structured training programs, maybe offering office hours or expert help for trickier problems.
Okay.
And sometimes even taking over the management of an app if it grows into something really strategic or mission critical for the whole company.
Right, graduating it to formal IT support.
Exactly. A core concept IT uses for control is environments. Think of them like containers for all the Power Platform stuff, apps, flows, connections, data.
Like dev, test, prod.
Yeah, typically organizations set up separate environments for development, testing, and production. This allows for proper testing and quality control before things go live, and it helps manage who has access to what. By default, everyone might be able to experiment in the default environment, but IT manages access to the others more tightly.
Okay, environments for separation. What else?
Data loss prevention policies, or DLP. These are really powerful guardrails IT can set up.
How do they work?
They let IT classify all the different connectors like SharePoint, SQL Server, Twitter, Salesforce, etc. into categories. Maybe business data only, no business data allowed, or just plain blocked.
So you can't accidentally send company financial data to a personal Dropbox, for example.
Exactly that. It prevents sensitive data from being mixed with non-business services or leaking out inappropriately. And IT also has specific administrative tools, PowerShell scripts, special connectors for Power Automate that let them monitor usage, manage permissions, and control the platform at a granular level.
So IT still has oversight and control levers.
Absolutely, it's not the Wild West. And a highly recommended resource for structuring all this is the Center of Excellence, or COE Starter Kit.
What is that exactly?
It's not just tools, it's more like a template and a set of best practices provided by Microsoft.
Right.
It helps organizations set up governance, monitor usage, nurture their citizen developers, and importantly, track and communicate the value these solutions are creating.
Okay, a framework for success.
Yeah, a very useful one.
Okay.
And we're also seeing the rise of what people call fusion teams.
Fusion teams.
Yeah, pairing up citizen developers with professional developers on the same project. The citizen dev brings the deep business knowledge. The pro dev brings expertise in architecture, security, complex integrations.
Best of both worlds.
Exactly. It often leads to building better, more valuable solutions faster. Of course, all the support, the training, the COE, the IT time, it represents an internal effort, a cost.
Right, it's an investment.
It's an investment.
Yeah.
But as that Forrester study clearly showed, it's an investment with a massive payoff. The ROI makes it very much worthwhile. It's really an investment in your organization's future agility and innovation capacity.
So wrapping this up, today we've really taken a deep dive into this powerful world of citizen development and automation champions. And we've seen how empowering your business users, giving them tools like the Power Platform, it isn't just about, maybe saving a bit of money on development.
No, it's much bigger than that.
It's about strategically fostering innovation, really streamlining critical processes, and ultimately driving some incredible business outcomes across the entire organization.
It truly is about democratizing development, like you said earlier, letting those people who are closest to the actual business problems build the solutions they need quickly.
While IT provides the guardrails.
Exactly. While IT ensures the necessary governance, the security, the support structures are all firmly in place. It's a fundamental shift in how organizations can adapt, respond, and really thrive in today's, incredibly fast-paced digital world.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. As you think about your own organization's automation journey, perhaps consider this. What untapped potential is sitting right there within your own teams?
Yeah.
People just waiting for the right tools, the right support, and maybe the right strategic framework to become your next wave of innovation champions.
It's a powerful question to ask.
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We hope this exploration empowers you to look at your organization's potential in perhaps a whole new way.
Thanks for having me.